welcome to Perfecting the Formula. My name is Mahesh.
And this is Juan.
And welcome to the Bahrain Grand Prix pre-race chat. It's the 999th Grand Prix for Formula One.
All right, triple nines.
Yep, triple nines, one away from the 1,000, which will be an exciting episode to say the least. But for now, it's time for our hot takes on the news this past couple weeks before we dive into the Bahrain Grand Prix. So, Juan?
All right, so remember, not only Ferrari or Red Bull threatened to leave, but McLaren, which I think this one actually packs a more of a punch than the others.
Really? What makes you say that?
Because most of the other teams, at least Red Bull and Ferrari, I think they're just doing it just to push their weight around since they have a more of a stronger voting power. And I think McLaren is down in the dumps with everyone else, and they're actually hurting. So one of their reasons on threatening to leave is mainly financial caps.
Yeah, no, so I don't know how much of an effect it is that it's McLaren versus others. I'm not going to get into whether that's more or less powerful than Ferrari, Red Bull, or Mercedes saying something. But I am a huge fan of everything Zach Brown said. So I'm a huge fan of changing financial distribution. I think you brought up a really interesting point, which is that, yeah, they can still be compensated, but that doesn't mean that what they're compensated has to go into what they spend on performance. So you can get compensated hundreds of millions of dollars over the course of a season, but still only be allowed to spend a certain amount. Like, it's just basically a salary cap, but on performance. I think that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, and they did talk about, what was it? Just trying to better the racing style through at least for the 2021, which that's coming. That's 2 years from now. I can't believe that.
Right. It's coming rapidly. But no, I mean, he brought up a good point, and the performance cap would prevent cookie cutter cars, which I think is a big sticking point for a lot of the purists. And even not the purists, but you know how I love attacking the purists, so the purists. Anyway, but it's a sticking point, but this will prevent cookie cutter cars while still having more of the teams on par. If everyone's spending the same amount and then you still suck, that just means you suck.
Yeah, which
Williams.
Actually a year ago they had their pre-Bahrain meeting, and they had their meeting again this year. So 1 year later, that not much information has come out of that. But one of the things I did notice, I forgot who was I listening to. I think it was Mark Piersley, and mechanic from McLaren many years ago. He was talking about how Haas and Ferrari kind of seemed what they did was kind of iffy when Haas first came in. How Haas was still getting data for themselves while building parts for Haas.
Yeah, that was a little interesting. That was still a little wild. But, I mean, Zach Brown brings up a good point. I don't know what effect it's going to have, but, I mean, Formula One is low on teams. 10 teams is typically what we consider the minimum for Formula One. So this is entering risky territory now if they have teams threatening to leave. So definitely interesting.
Yeah, and we talked about this so many times, teams coming in. Okay, let's not beat that horse again. All right, so coming away from that, at least with the new regulations, is there any other regulations you're hoping that comes out of this meeting that just happened this week?
I think...
Or at least a semi-plan?
I would be really interested in a horsepower limit. That's very controversial, but like a cap on how much horsepower an engine can produce.
So let's get this straight. So this may cause some other side effects if they are planning to have a fixed gear box, or at least the gears inside that could case it in.
All I'm saying is you're fixing the horsepower, right? I'm saying your engine has a max output that you see that in Formula E. There's a max kilowatt that the electrical engine can produce. I'm saying do a horsepower version of that. I'm not saying you can't mess with the weight of your engine. So obviously, whoever can make the lightest engine that produces the most power. I'm not saying you can manipulate your engine whether you want it to be generating more torque off the line or you want it to be generating power in the higher rev. So if you have a fixed gearbox, right, all of that starts playing in on where do you want power delivery.
All right.
So, I mean, I think, but it just prevents straight line speed from playing such a huge role, which I think Carlos Sainz mentioned actually recently when he was talking about his Renault engine.
Yeah, his Renault engine actually sounds a little more competitive than it was when he first came into Renault 2 years ago,
Yeah,
or 1.5.
oh yeah, it's weird, but it's like, yeah, it's our next little like tidbit news item, which was Carlos Sainz saying he's actually impressed with the Renault engine, and I think for good cause. And it's only 2 or 3 kilometers slower now rather than 10, as he himself said. And I mean, you're seeing, I think Renault's coming back, baby steps, baby steps. We're getting there. But if you look back when they won the '05 and '06 championships with Alonso, it was baby steps that got them those championships. Like, to that point, it took them a good decade to get to the '05 '06 championship. So I think that when they came back, it was going to be that same baby step. And they're a big manufacturer. Cyril is, in my opinion, one of the more dramatic team principals. I think that he's a little emotional, as the F1 Drive to Survive just verified for me. But I think that he knows what he's doing with a team that big. And so we're going to see interesting things out of Renault. Going to see some spicy things.
Yeah, hopefully what happened at the last race with Ricardo's car doesn't... That was just a fluke.
Yeah, apparently Red Bull gives you wings and Renault takes away your wings.
No, but I didn't realize that most Renault cars are not B teams. Oh, wait. Renault and Mercedes don't technically have true B teams or junior teams.
Right. They don't technically. They do have affiliates. I mean, Mercedes Drivers Academy typically does go through Force India. Or not Force India. Racing Point. Yeah. Daddy Stroll. They go through Daddy Stroll first. So, I mean, obviously they don't have official driver academies, but you always have a little bit of going on.
We'll give you a discount.
Right. So, yeah. Interesting news on Renault, though.
Yeah, and that's at least showing pace for Renault, and hopefully at least now that Carlos Sainz, he may not be part of may have not known the issues that the McLaren chassis has had, but at least he knows how to work with the engineers that are going to be affiliated or assigned to McLaren from Renault for the engine at least.
Right. I mean, exactly. Perfect. On point. Can't even add a comment there, Juan. Well said.
All right, talking about junior drivers, Ferrari has a junior driver, and it's the infamous Mick Schumacher.
Yeah, I mean, I'm typically against this whole legacy driver thing. Like, just because your dad was great doesn't mean you're going to be great. The Villeneuves show that. But I mean, this is one of those instances where I can't really argue with his track record. What is it? 13 podiums, 8 race wins in F3, and now he's about to start his debut in F2, and he's fast, he's solid. I think if he has good testing results, Vettel should be scared for his job.
Yeah, one thing that I did notice about Mick Schumacher, at least, during his GP3, he did win that championship, but his first year at GP3, he was kind of iffy. He sucked at qualifying. Then during the break, between 17 to 18, he kind of tying it down and got better.
Right, and what you have to remember though is Formula 3 for a lot of racers is their first introduction to a Formula style car, and so it's a big step, right? Like a Formula style car is significantly different than any other vehicle you're ever going to race. It's got, whether it be the hand clutch, whether it be a variety of different things, it's just a whole new beast that you're dealing with. So that's semi-understandable. I have high hopes for him. I think he'll make it to Formula 1 someday, if just not on his name, then on his pure talent. So I see a bright future for young Mick.
Yeah, so Mick's, has some big shoes to fill, but it's quite interesting that he's testing for both Ferrari and Alfa Romeo.
Well, it's the junior team thing. So.
Yeah, and I thought they would at least stuff them at one or the other, but
I mean, this just puts pressure on Giovinazzi, though. I mean, he needs to perform, otherwise his seat's up for grabs. I think I would say that about Raikkonen, but that's just not true. Raikkonen's pretty solid.
I think they're just going to keep Raikkonen until Raikkonen says, you know what, I'm out.
Yeah, I'm guessing Raikkonen's going to be 50 by the time he retires. But bringing up the whole Michael Schumacher, one of his rivals, Fernando Alonso, somehow made it back into Formula One news headlines today. Or a few days ago, that is.
Yeah, he did, and actually threw a Ferrari representative.
Big yikes. Basically, the claim is that the reason Fernando Alonso couldn't win a championship was because he was a little pouty when they lost. I'm going to let you say something before I pop off.
Yeah, and I don't know. I know Ferrari. Well, not Ferrari. Well, Ferrari is also an emotional team, but that's a whole. Well, they're passionate. Let's call it that way. At least the fans
Right.
are. But Alonso, I know, coming in from the
Red Bull.
different race categories, and then when he finally came into after he left Renault to
Come to Ferrari.
no, he left to
Oh yeah, he
McLaren.
went to McLaren and then McLaren to Ferrari. He had a career.
Yeah, I think he was at McLaren for 1 year, 2 years, and it was a back and forth.
It
So,
was yeah, I think it was Renault, McLaren, and then Ferrari, and then he went back to McLaren after Ferrari, obviously for the Honda engine.
and that's I know at least looking at the history before, even somebody coming out, Ferrari president D Montezum.
Well, Ferrari president at the time when Fernando Alonso
Yeah.
was there, yeah. He was basically like, it's his emotions that prevented him from winning championships. Bullshit, in my opinion. I think what prevented him from winning championships was Pastor Maldonado crashing into him at Spa that one season. I think at another season it was shitty strategy calls by Ferrari at Brazil. I think that Fernando Alonso is the greatest racing driver to have ever graced a Formula One car, in my opinion.
Yeah.
His passing is unrivaled. His race pace is something that even Michael Schumacher had to give credence to. I think it's just Ferrari trying to cover its own. I just don't understand what the need for this was. He's a good driver. There's no need to try and say he's too emotional. Yeah, he was upset when he lost, but the fact of the matter is he was over at McLaren. He was upset and he would openly disparage the car, but openly disparaging the car allowed the car to get more competitive. If you tell when the head of Honda is there and you call it a GP2 engine, the head of Honda is going to make sure his racing division makes it not a GP2 engine. So I don't know. That's my take on it.
Yeah, I thought it was very interesting, but I forgot what it was I listening to. That they were talking about Ferrari always being a few points behind Red Bull during the 2010
I mean, yeah, that
13
was
era.
yeah, that was just a rough era. I mean, the difference between that era and the Mercedes era is that Red Bull was barely winning in those days, and these days Mercedes runs away with it. So, I don't know. That article just kind of was a little bit excessive, but we still got to do it because this are our hot takes on the news. Well, those were our hot takes, as I just said. We're going to take a quick break, and we're going to come back with our predictions for the upcoming race weekend. Some of them may be bold. See you after the break. Welcome back to Perfecting the Formula. We're having our little pre-race conversation for the Bahrain Grand Prix, and we're going to dive right into some of our bold predictions, but we're going to take it easy at first and just start off with driver of the day.
All right, before we get all into it, I just remembered for our Formula E fans that are listening to this, we apologize. We messed up on our calendar.
Oh, right, yeah. So we said we were going to have a bonus episode this Thursday. We meant next Thursday. It's fine. Shh, no one needs to know.
All right. So, driver of the day. Okay, so I think Ferrari's going to have a resurgence, but I have a feeling that Charles Leclerc is going to do well.
I'm going to go ahead and second that driver of the day prediction. My bet is also Charles Leclerc. And going into my podium prediction, I'm thinking Charles Leclerc is going to get driver of the day for his first ever Formula One win. Second place, I'm going to put Sebastian Vettel. Third place, I'm going to say Max Verstappen. I think this is a straight heavy circuit, which makes my prediction very bold because, well, it's not my bold prediction, but it makes it kind of interesting, right? Because I'm discounting Mercedes straight line pace. But my reasoning is the technical sections of Sector 2 in particular with the S's, I think the Red Bull's going to thrive in that position, and I think it has brilliant race pace.
All right. So, actually, my podium is almost similar to yours, just tweaked a little bit. So, I think let him race, #not really, is going to play into effect. And
Don't
I think
be like that. I have hopes and dreams.
I'm going to put Vettel on top, followed by Charles Leclerc. And then
Leclerc.
and then I'm putting actually Bottas up there in third place.
You're so boring, but true. Fine. You better let them race Ferrari. So help me God, I will fly to Bahrain. If you gave me a press pass, that's another point for another day.
Oh yeah.
But all right, but our listeners aren't just here for podiums and drivers of the day, Juan. They want to hear the spicy stuff. They want that masala on spice level 5. They're here for the bold prediction. So what's yours?
My bold prediction is, wait for it, DNF on Hamilton. Just straight up car engine just catches on fire. Engine, not the whole car.
The tears will be flowing. I actually have a bigger bold prediction. Hamilton and Bottas will start on the same row. Hamilton and Bottas will take each other out on the first lap.
So
Double DNF for Mercedes.
So you're hoping pretty much copy paste for Ferrari from Singapore to Bahrain.
Yeah, or Spain 2016, literally in Bahrain. I'm a huge fan of the concept. And this is a track with huge runoff spaces, so that's actually a hard thing to pull off, but turn 1 is still a tight turn, and going into the left-hander into turn 2, it is a very constricting because it is a single-file race line. There is room to go on either side, but drivers almost never do it because it just compromises your line into 3, down the straight, and into 4. So I think you're going to see some spiciness in that first turn, and I think some of the spiciness is going to involve Hamilton being a little salty. He was trash last race, and Bottas being like, I'm the king now, and then kabloomy.
So do you think now that we're actually in a proper circuit compared to Australia's street circuit, that you're actually going to see a little more passing on this time around?
Yeah, I think we're going to see a lot more passing. I think you're going to see a much more exciting race, provided Ferrari delivers. I think that whoever handles the cameras needs to realize to focus on the midfield more, and then we as viewers will be more entertained. But I think we'll just have to wait and see, and everyone's going to have to wait and see until this Friday, Saturday, and Sunday for race weekend. So, as always, if you are in the United States and you are watching for the race weekend, you can find the race on ESPN. Please tell thank you to your local cable provider, actually, though, because ESPN's doing this without ads, because the Sky broadcast is without ads, and when they did it with ads, it compromised it, so they're doing it without ads. So please thank them, actually, legitimately, because we want to keep our Formula One ad-free, and we're hoping Fox Sports will soon do the same with Formula E. So it's really awesome that you have this opportunity. Also, you can find it on F1 TV. Great service. We don't get paid to tell you that. Juan and I are huge fans of F1 TV. As always, please follow us on social media, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. We're going to be posting some fun little polls, and you also get the chance to ask us any questions leading up to the weekend, and we try to answer as many of them as we get. So far, we have a 100% answer rate, so not bad. And we might in the near future, in not this race, but in a couple races, do an Instagram live while we're watching the race. You could comment at us, and as always, we'll be on Reddit, so you can keep track of us during the race. And my name is Mahesh.
And this is Juan.
And this has been another episode of Perfecting the Formula.